Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to our business expansion course. We are here because you have told us that you want to grow and expand your business, and in the process, learn about economic development incentives and see how you may be able to leverage them as you grow and expand your business. Before I begin, I want to say thank you to Midlothian Economic Development Board and the City Council. They're the ones who have enabled us to be here today. In addition to this course, Midlothian Economic Development is also sponsoring in partnership with the Chamber the Business Before Business events where they'll discuss hot topics of the time. The other opportunity is the Business Academy. That course is intended to review business tactics when we think about how to do marketing, how to do accounting, or how to do any of the components of the business. This course is different from each of those, and where we're here working with you as a business who wants to grow and expand. We're going to teach you all about what's needed to access incentives. We're going to teach you how local residents benefit when we work and partner with you. My name is Kyle Kennetetter. In addition to me, I have a team who help ultimately work with businesses like yours to go through that incentive process. As far as the format of this course, everything will be online. The content material that will be available for you. That way, you can review it before we meet. You can go back and you review it after we meet. You can go through it multiple times. As you have that online content, you're going to be challenged to think about your own business and to write responses to questions that will come. It's really important that you document that in a workbook. It's important in part because that's where you take the online content and really apply and make it real for your business. We then will take the online content and information that you've kind of written down in your workbook, and we'll come together for what we call our cohort meetings. So cohorts meet once a week on Thursdays. We're going to keep it to about an hour to an hour and a half. You'll be challenged and learn from your peers who are going through the same process. They're going to come from different industries, size of business. You're going to recognize a lot of parallels as you're embarking upon this process to grow your business. You're here because you are an established business, that you have stable revenue, that you have experience with employees and access to. You're curious and you want to know and learn more about incentives and what is required so that you can access and leverage those resources as you grow your business. It's always interesting when people think of incentives, they'll typically go to large corporations. These are projects that we hear about in the news. And a lot of times there's a question, why do large businesses receive incentives when I don't? We're going to talk all about that. As we go through this process in this course, we're going to teach you. We're going to teach about what the community is thinking as we offer these incentives. The other key thing with incentives is incentives are governed by very specific rules and regulations. The old adage, there is no such thing as free money, is true. When we're using public's money, right? Residents of Midlothian, this is their funds. So we want to make sure that we're in 100% compliance with all rules, regulations. We also want to make sure that it's a safe investment. As we go through this course, give you information so that you're better prepared. So when you're ready and we have that conversation about your specific investment project, we'll all be ready to ensure that your business is ready and that you have the organization and systems and finances in place. We're bringing on a partner to help us. Jordan Mortensen, who is a local business owner, entrepreneur, he is going to teach us from your perspective. Jordan is somebody who has been through the struggles and challenges and the ups and the downs of owning a business, very much what you're experiencing. I don't have that same ability. And as we go through this course, Jordan and I will kind of work together. He will be able to bring in his experiences and real world story as he went from starting a business, getting it stabilized, growing and selling off portions of his business. He's learned a lot through doing that I just unfortunately am not able to do. In addition to Jordan's business experience, he's a dentist and gone through all those schools, also gone through his MBA program. And so he has the scholastic backing as well. I know you're going to be able to learn a lot from Jordan as he shares his experiences to help you prepare, and we can have a discussion on it. We're really excited and can't wait to go through these programs in more detail. We got Jordan Mortensen with us today. How are you doing, Jordan?
I'm doing good. Doing good. No, happy to be here with you, Kyle.
Awesome. Well, hey, share with them a little bit how we got connected and why ultimately you're here helping us with this training.
I know, Kyle, we met, I think, a little bit over 4 years ago now. And, we both connected over, I guess, this commonality of small businesses. You directly working here in the city, and then myself being the small business owner. You've asked me questions about, hey, how could we better support small businesses in the community? I've kind of given you my opinions, and you kind of watched me grow and do my thing. And we've just kind of connected over that common point of small business, and just really how each of our jobs kind of intertwine just a little bit there.
I always thought it was interesting to get your feedback as far as ideas that we had in how we can help our local businesses and kind of bouncing ideas off of you. As I've learned about you and what all you've done with your business and how you've been able to grow. And then also as I've taught you about economic development, some of the tools, kind of a whole new world has opened up as far as opportunity for you. It's really made me look at working with small businesses differently. Jordan, let's start off, help everybody get to know you as the person and kind of how you got into working on your business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think this is so much of who I am. So I always find it appropriate to introduce myself this way, but I am a small town kid. I grew up in Central Florida on a very large cattle ranch. I believe it is considered the largest cattle ranch in the United States. And so, I mean, we're talking, Kyle, massive, 4% of Florida. Okay. This ranch was this massive operation, but it has driven really everything that I've decided to do since then. As I worked on the ranch, there was this core principle that was taught to me about just hard work. And everybody on the ranch just worked really hard. And there were several of us boys that grew up together that we ended up going on different paths. Many of them just became cowboys. I wanted to go down this path of professional development. I was always attracted to doing my own thing. I became a dentist. By becoming the dentist, I became a business owner. And then beyond just becoming a business owner, or I should say, and we'll talk about this a little bit, by owning my first little practice and then having this bigger vision of growing a group of dental practices. It really does kind of start with who I was, originally as a kid and those principles taught to me, but it really does stem much larger into my professional development and then wanting to grow a larger dental organization.
You and I have talked a lot about a concept of kind of the difference between being self-employed and having, and being a business owner.
This rings true to me and who I am as a business owner now is so many times I will meet small business owners. And what I have to remind them is, we'll talk about this. Well, are you self-employed or are you a business owner? And there really is a distinct difference there. So my very first practice I bought in downtown Austin, Texas. And I would consider myself self-employed at that point because I did everything for that office. And when I say everything, I mean, I was the first one there to unlock all the doors, flip on the lights, turn on all the computers. I would open all the operatories. We're talking the chairs that the patients sit down in, make sure everything was good to go. I would slowly start, my team would get there. I had an assistant and a front desk, and we would kind of start our day. But everything went through me, every decision. I just didn't trust my team. What I find is that most small business owners, they are just that. They are hustlers and they work hard. And so many of them do that because it's so ingrained into them based on who they were as a kid. Like, I was the ranch boy. I was this small town kid. I was just going to work hard and grow my practice. But as I continued to grow that practice, because you will grow your small business being self-employed and just doing everything in there. But there comes a moment where you actually have to exude a level of leadership that helps you grow, where you actually have to learn delegation. And you have to learn how to delegate responsibilities and ask the team to show up in ways that they've never been asked to show up before. As you start to do that and you develop yourself into a better leader, it allows you to remove yourself out of the business and stop doing day-to-day things and bottleneck yourself down with every little decision that you have to make. You can actually remove yourself from the business and start working on the business instead of in the business. That starts with just proper leadership and delegation. And my story is like, I got into Austin, Texas. I hired a doctor to take over some of my clinical responsibilities. and I became a better leader, and I handed things off to my teams. And that was in 2019 when I bought that practice. And now it's, 2025 and I own 5 practices. I've since sold that one and kind of redesigned my strategy, which is now focused on small town dentistry. But I truly consider myself a business owner now because I am not involved in the day-to-day operations of things, and I can now work on the business and make strategic decisions. So does that make sense? I mean, so you've got the self-employed individual who's just ingrained in the day-to-day, and then you have the business owner who might check in once a week on the business and make sure things are working well or run a meeting or two.
It's really less about it being a new business versus an established, business with experience. And it really is more the owner of the business and how important they are to the operations, right? You mentioned you were the one that was doing everything as opposed to being able to kind of step aside, because now you're at the point where you have multiple different locations with your business. Is the distinction between the two one single location versus multiple locations, or the fact of how important you are to that business?
And I guess I want to first make sure this is spoken very clearly. It doesn't matter what camp you're in. Meaning, if you're self-employed, that's awesome. Like, meaning you are the one where everything runs through you. Like, that's okay. In so many ways, dentists remain self-employed because they don't have a vision beyond growing past their one location. And they may not want to, and that's okay. But understanding if you are in a self-employed situation, there's certain ways you grow a self-employed business where you are the bottleneck and everything goes through you, versus there's a different way that you grow a business when you're able to remove yourself and grow and scale that business differently. And so I think it's just important to distinguish between those two different scenarios. And neither one is right or wrong. It just really does depend on what your why. And, I believe that's something that you and I are going to discuss later, but you just have to ask yourself, what is it that you want? And make sure that you're growing the business that you desire to have.
So often on the economic development side, as we work with businesses, one of the challenges that we see with a lot of smaller local businesses is that they are in that self-employed stage, right? They have the business. A lot of times they've left a job and find themselves back in, this hard job where they're the ones doing everything. The challenge for us on the economic development side is when a business owner is the one that the business is solely dependent upon them and their success, they're not always able to take on more, whether it's a physical expansion of space or whether, it's having the policies and kind of systems in place in order to add more employees.
It's a different skill set than being the baker in the bakery. It's a skill set that's founded in leadership.
Most of the businesses, right? More businesses that we work with are in that business owner phase where they are able to step back and work on their business rather than in their business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something that as I've talked to you, Kyle, and you've educated me on, all right, hey, how can an EDC affect and help, and, potentially give money? How can the EDC help in a way, help put the capital stack together for these businesses? And it is the small businesses that are run on systems and have a strong why and have this strong leader that is actually leading the business and not necessarily just ingrained into the day-to-day. And, and we'll get into those principles, but that is something that I think is key for a lot of people to understand, that if the EDC is really going to get in and help you grow as a business, you have to become a business owner and you have to kind of change your mindset a little bit about not being self-employed, but turning into a true business.
With all the businesses that we're working with who are listening to this, that would be one of the first challenges is take a step back and to evaluate where you're at in your business, right? How critical is it that you're involved in everyday operations? Are you more in that self-employed stage, or are you truly a business owner?
right. I teased this a little bit earlier, Kyle, and I think it'd be appropriate to kind of dive deep into it now. But this really is the idea of what's your why? Now, what is that driving factor? What is that why that is motivating you on a daily basis to get up and tackle all the different issues that come up in our businesses?
When you say, what is your why is your drive for what they're doing, right? It's what motivates them. It's ultimately why they are in business, right? You go to earn money for something, and that can be connected to, why they're doing business. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly what's their driving force there? When you look at my story, for example, I'm this small town kid who really just wanted, honestly, like as I was going through my schooling, I just wanted to become a awesome provider for my family. That's what my father was able to do for me. And that's something that was really my driving force of going through dental school. I got my MBA at night and earned all these degrees to help me become a great provider for my family, to give my kids a great life. And the unique thing about my Austin practice was it got me in the game. It was just like, it was the opportunity that I had right out of school. And I said, great, let's go get in the game. But as I got to Austin, while it served its purpose and I got in the game and I grew and I provided for my family, I also learned that being that self-employed individual, I might as well have been employed by another dentist. I was just doing everything. I was a slave to my business. That as I learned to become a business owner and grow that practice and remove myself from it, I then had to ask myself further, all right, hey, if my driving force and my driving why was to become a great provider, do I want to be raising my family in downtown Austin? I'm the small town kid. And is downtown Austin fitting these values that I have? Lots of good people in downtown Austin, but it wasn't where I wanted to raise my family. And so as I continued to grow and I became this business owner, I started looking at small town Texas, and I started looking at these opportunities to take my systems and take my leadership style that I developed there in my downtown Austin practice and apply them to these small town dental practices. And therefore, my why continued for me, and I was able to move my family away from small town Texas. So we now live in Midlothian, this beautiful Texas community. I feel like I'm in Texas now, but and really continue with my why and become this great entrepreneur. At least I would consider myself a learning and growing entrepreneur that is still founded in my why of being a great provider for my family. And so hopefully that helps drive that point home, that the why really does have to drive your decisions in your business.
I was going to mention that. I think it's interesting how, in your story, as, you grew and expanded from Jordan of Austin to Jordan of Midlothian. Ultimately, why you have your business, why you're working, it's going to be difficult regardless, whatever you do.
Absolutely.
Having that,
for times,
having your business ultimately align with what you and your family wants most. So often, as I work with businesses, we see businesses chase different opportunities, right? They'll come up, and occasionally we'll see some that, I look back and I'm like, wow, where did that one come? You'll see the business kind of chase it for a while, and then the product fizzles out or it dies. It gets businesses off on the wrong track. And I think there really is power in having that long-term motivation. That there's strength in, thinking about your business and kind of why you're doing it, and making sure that you have that reality check of what I'm doing today in my business is getting me to that long-term output that you're working towards, that you want. It seems like, a simple activity. It's something that, gets overlooked a lot.
It does.
I would argue that very few businesses have, taken time and really defined and, articulated what their why is. And so as we go through, we mentioned we're going to challenge, our businesses to take action, right? And so this is kind of the first one. We want everybody to take some time, think about your business, think about what got you into business, think about what those long-term goals are, write them down, right? You've got the workbooks, take some time, articulate what it is and sit on it, right? take a couple of days thinking through it and
Marinate.
thinking about your business and how those two really align.
Yeah, no, I mean, and Kyle, and I guess I would urge those listening, write it down. Because, as I've talked to you and I've talked to you about these small businesses that come in and work with the EDC, the ones that you actually end up working with are those that have strong whys. And we need to make sure that we place important on making sure that you have a strong why, but not that you just have it, that it is written down and that you revisit it, because it really does need to be that driving force for yourself.
So as we move through this program, we're going to talk a lot about the businesses and their desire to expand, right? That's what brought them here to this course. That's what they're doing. We want to align their whys with the project. It's, especially when we lay on the layer of incentives and, opportunities that are there. It's not about chasing incentives. It's not about, it really is about growing your business the way that you want to. That's where you're going to have the biggest impact. That's where you're going to make the biggest difference. That's where you're going to set the culture for your company, and others are going to follow and come with you. And so everybody take time, articulate it, and write it down. For this next section, we're going to dive into the specifics of how economic development incentives work in our local community. I got to warn everybody before we go into this section, it gets into the details. I recognize that not everybody is a detailed person, but I promise you, this information is key as you're trying to grow and expand your business. I'm going to share what's known as base theory economics and how the flow of money comes in and out of communities. The circle is representative of a local economy. On the top, we have our basic industries, and on the bottom, we're representing our non-basic industries. When we look at basic industries, we see manufacturing operations who manufacture products in our community and then ultimately export those outside of the region to other customers. When that happens, new money comes into the community. That money goes to pay local wages, local supplies, local taxes. It doesn't just happen with manufacturing. Basic industries also include those companies who are exporting services. Think of technology that's being exported outside of a community or services without a physical product. Same thing happens as those products are created in our community, sent outside of our region to other customers, new dollars come in to the community. This new funds help to pay for local services, whether they're our police, fire, EMS, our teachers in a community, but it also helps to provide demand for our local non-basic industries, which include medical, restaurants, retail, services that our residents rely upon. And so both basic and non-basic industries are important to an overall local economy. Basic industries bring new dollars into the community, and then our non-basic industries, the more we can have our local business working with each other and sharing services and circulating that money, we also benefit. But all non-basic industries will go outside of our local economy to purchase goods and services. In understanding how this works, we'll be able to share and connect that with economic development incentives. And the reason why we use incentives is to help grow our basic industries to bring new dollars into our community. According to the International Economic Development comes down to those programs, policies, and activities that benefit our local economies by creating jobs and providing a stable tax base. In Midlothian, we have 5 different organizations, 5 different groups that provide different tools and programs and resources. These programs increase jobs and provide that stable tax base and services that our community needs. There's also other economic development organizations and entities that are very active in our community, providing a lot of support on the training side, which again help improve the jobs in our community and also allow us to have a stable tax base. I'm going to focus specifically on the Type A and Type B economic development corporations in our community. Both are very similar. As far as the organizations and structures, there's four main components. The first one is the residents. Many of you are residents in our community, and it's because of you or those that came before you that even allowed us to be in existence. The residents also play a key role in directing how these funds are going to be used. That happens in part by that third part of our board of directors. The board is made up of Midlothian residents who dictate the organizational policy, and they're the ones who select the projects and define the terms and make those key legislative findings as to why we would or would not do one of the projects. City council is another organization that's very important and critical to Type A and Type B corporations. The city council is the one who gets to appoint the board. They can choose for any reason who or why somebody may sit on one of these two boards. The other piece is very important is city council is the one that controls the money. No Type A or Type B funds are able to be spent until city council has approved those funds. Between the board and the council, you have a check and balance system where there's additional oversight to ensure that the community is making the findings for the projects that we're going after. And city council can control the money that projects are being spent, that these funds are being spent wisely on the right projects. As staff, we are, there really to implement the board's direction. The Type A and Type B, these are two separate organizations. We're nonprofit economic development corporations, and we receive sales tax revenue, and we are only able to spend the sales tax revenue in three very distinct and specific ways. The first one is operations. Myself and the other economic development staff is paid. It's our job to go out and to bring forward projects that benefit our community. Second thing that we're able to do is promotion. We can promote our community for business in bringing in the type of business that we as a community want. The third thing is projects. Now, projects has a very specific meaning, as we will cover in a little bit. The last thing to know is that all funds are spent having a performance agreement. This is key because this ensures that the residents truly get what the community anticipated with each of the projects that we take on. In Type A organizations and Type B organizations, there's this key term called a primary job employer. Primary job employer aligns very closely with the concept of base theory economics. Primary job employers are those companies who export a product or service. And so the first project type that we have the ability to participate with is companies that create primary jobs. I want to take a second and pause here. When we look at the industry and the type of jobs creating, it doesn't matter the size. Primary job employer could be a large company or it could be a small company. The size of a company does not matter. The key is that the company is exporting that product or service. The second project type is workforce. Economic development corporations can use their funds for career centers. So we're able to use our funds for capital expenditures that help train our local workforce. In Midlothian, great example that we have here is the Midlothian Higher Education Center, where we were able to work with Navarro College and provide funding for those buildings that they're here in our community. The third opportunity and project type is infrastructure improvements. These projects promote new or expanded businesses. We have a couple of great examples that our economic development corporations have come together and worked in our community. Probably the most visible is the hospital. The hospitals, they're not considered primary job employers. However, the boards and council recognized the economic generator that project would be, that by having a hospital, other businesses in that industry would want to locate near them. Type B organizations, Midlothian Community Development Corporation, has the ability to do all of the Type A projects. And they've been a great partner to help bring about projects to get us to where we are today. Our Type B Corporation has the ability to do additional projects. They have the ability to do recreational and community facilities. And so this is all of the great things that we've seen at Midlothian Community Park and others around the community. They also have the ability to participate in affordable housing, water supply, and some additional projects that help attract primary job employers to our community. Each of these projects bring new jobs to our community, and they create local tax revenue. We want to take a second and really help share with everybody the revenue that the city receives as a result of taxes into the community. So the first one is our property tax. It's broken down into two different components. There's a portion that pays the debt for large projects that the community takes on. The other one is the maintenance and operation. This is the staff and the personnel and really the largest cost of operating a city. Another significant area of revenue is in sales tax. All sales that are subject to tax are taxed at 8.25%. 2% of that stays here in Midlothian. And so 1% goes to the city's general fund. The other 1% is divided between our A and our B corporations. And then the last one are fees. The city uses a lot of usage fees, whether it's in the building of a new development or the ongoing use of something in our community. The fees are not really a revenue generator. They offset specific costs that align with the usage. Wanted just to share our philosophy as it relates to incentives and working with companies. We truly see this as a partnership. All incentive projects that the community takes on, we want to make sure that there's direct benefit to our residents. If we approach an incentive agreement in that spirit of partnership, good partnerships are one where the two parties work together and the two parties benefit by working together. And so that's one of the first things is we look for companies who are willing to partner with us. Now we know and we understand that they're wanting that upfront money. In return, the community is going to look for specific benefit to our residents. The value of incentives, they're really proportional. And in part, that has to do with as the city receives money, we have to make sure that there's a return to our residents. Most incentives are between 2 and 10%, and they're based off of the property tax that's generated. If there are sales tax involved, those percentages do go up because there's additional benefit to the community. The second thing that in this win-win partnership is we want to make sure that the incentives truly benefit the community and you as a company. We put forward these agreements in a way that they don't create liabilities for you as a company or us as a community. To do this, we structure our incentives such they're post-performance. We ensure that the company has made the investment and they've had the jobs in place before the public dollars are spent. This creates a framework that the company never has to repay, or the community doesn't have to go after funds if the investment or the jobs were not put in place. Now that we've looked back on what economic development corporations are and what primary job employers are, and we look at the growth opportunity of your business and aligning your future growth plans with being a primary job employer, whether it's growing as a manufacturing component, whether it's a distribution or a wholesale component, research and development, or a headquarters, we're going to go through some of the specifics that the board will use in making that finding that your project would qualify for incentives. The first piece is, as you have your expansion project, what are those funds eligible to be used for? As a primary job employer, you're able to receive funds for land, buildings, equipment, expenditures, targeted infrastructure, and improvements. You'll notice that each of these are capital expenditures. And the second key component is ensuring that the operation is a primary job employer. We know several of you have local non-primary job businesses. As you grow and expand, that's what creates the opportunity. We've seen companies that have adjusted and changed their main operation. We've also seen companies who have carved out and created a separate organization or separate entity for this primary job component. So the first requirement is it has to create primary jobs, create or retain primary jobs. And then it has to be one of these key uses. The next key piece is the board has to make a finding that your company is truly exporting products or services. Each project is going to be different. We need to know whether their products or services are being exported out of Midlothian. We want to understand, is it they're just going to a community, next to us, or are they within the are they across the Metroplex? Are they outside of the state, or are they going worldwide? The last piece is a requirement that that organization and that operation is defined in one of these, what are called NAICE codes. These are industry classification codes. There's a lot to choose from. We've highlighted those that we've talked about that are most common to our community. The last piece that we're going to go through are performance agreements. So we mentioned anytime public dollars are used, we have to ensure that the resident is receiving benefit from that project. We do this through performance agreements. We have to have that legal document. Anytime we approve an incentive, we have an incentive agreement that's there that outlines these key components. So the first component is that the performance agreement outlines that jobs are being created or retained. The second piece is that there is that capital expenditure that is being made, and that's going to align with how those funds are used. The second part is state law requires that we have specific terms for repayment. What we've done is we've structured our incentives such that they're post-performance, meaning we want the company to do the project up front, make those capital expenditures, have the jobs in place. At that point, we're able to provide, the incentive. We understand that this does create a difficulty in that you're receiving the money later on in the project. However, it removes the liability for your company and also for the community. All performance agreements are approved by the board of directors and city council.
I had no idea that incentives were available to small businesses, nor, to be quite frank, I had no idea what EDCs even did. I mean, do you get that a lot? Do you even
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Well, and as people can see, there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of,
oh my goodness.
They're more complex than people realize, right? And so unfortunately they had to sit through, all of the details about what incentives are.
Yes, but I think it's important though to understand what they are and how EDCs can help these businesses. And I look back and I'm like, I look back over just growing my businesses and looking into, each little community that I'm in, how could have their individual EDCs helped me grow? And funny enough, my most recent practice I bought, do you want to know who the first organization I reached out to was? The EDC. And, and they helped us get a hold of a property that's really key to our strategy there in this small town. But I mean, it's interesting to me that so many business owners are, and I would say they're neglecting, they just don't know about how much an EDC can do to help them. And then on top of that, help them put together a capital stack through these incentives, which I think is pretty incredible. And it's an awesome opportunity that as we understand that, the EDCs can help these primary job employers. So many small business owners they're there. They might need to improve their systems and improve themselves as a business owner, but they're there. And the EDC is ready to help. And they've got money that they could help.
The key, and what we're trying to do here in Midlothian is we're trying to get creative, right? And really expand the opportunity. And so what we have with most of our local smaller businesses is companies that are these local employers, right? They're not the primary job employers. If we can help our businesses grow and expand and ultimately export a product or service, that's the key. That's what creates the opportunity. And so 4 key ways that we have in order to do that. Our challenge to all non-primary job employers is to see themselves as a primary job employer and to align those with their expansion opportunities. So the 4 key things: becoming a manufacturer, right? This is a company who makes a product or service that is then exported outside the region. Yes. The second one is a distribution or a wholesale opportunity. And so again, they have this product, right, that they're, product or service that they're, assembling, and then it's being sent out to outside of the region. That brings new money in. There's research and development opportunities, right, in developing of new products or services. And then the last one is the headquarters. So once you're able to expand your business and have it in other regions, your headquarters and those jobs associated with supporting those other locations, that's how we change a non-primary job employer into a primary job employer. And so there's a lot there. Jordan, I think one of the things that would be helpful, we've heard some about your story as a dentist. Let's walk through each of these 4 opportunities for you. So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, let's. All right.
And so kind of going through for Jordan as the dentist, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll frame this as the Jordan of Austin, right? So you were the Jordan of Austin. What opportunities are there for taking your dental practice and becoming, that manufacturer, making a product or service?
Okay. So we're starting with manufacturing. Okay. Well, it's funny you say that. So from my Austin days, and it's actually something that I've done, but it was a software to manage all of the systems in my office. Because what I found was that most of the softwares that were out there were too robust for a small business. And so since then, I've actually developed a software. So I actually do think that I could probably take manufacturing right away. But it was something that started then where I've developed a software that I would sell to other offices and other small businesses outside of Midlothian, but that would help run small businesses.
Sure. And so this is something that you use at your practices.
Yeah.
But you realize the application is there for everybody, right? Other dental practices would use the same software.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
Okay.
Awesome. Maybe a little bit harder one. How about as a distributor or wholesaler?
Yeah. I think as you and I have talked about these 4 different ways, this one and really, R&D, the research and development have been 2 that I've struggled thinking about. But the distributor and wholesaler, there have been dentists that have developed their own whitening solution and then became like this distributor of, a proprietary whitening solution to other dentists and have become really big players in the market of dentistry, which I do think that if that was of interest to me, I could most definitely do something like that.
So let me kind of expand on that, thinking of other opportunities. There may be a whitening solution that, dentists like, but it's not as well used.
Yes.
Right. And so that manufacturer is looking for somebody to buy in bulk that then, you have savings in buying bulk and having the ability through your network of all of the dentists that you work with, being able to distribute or wholesale that product out. That would be another one.
So what I described the first time was maybe more of the R&D, developing my own whitening solution and doing that. Got it.
Perfect.
And so I solved the R&D question. Great. But yeah, no, exactly. So, and there are things like that where I could buy things in bulk from another manufacturer and potentially, strive to push them out to my own offices or to other offices. Okay.
Sure. Last one, a headquarters. How could Jordan of Austin become a headquarters?
And this one for me, Jordan of Austin, obviously it would be to grow to multiple locations and then have a centralized office that services those other locations, which is where I'm at now. Now, I don't have that centralized office yet, but that is most likely my I would consider my targeted way of working with an EDC and receiving an incentive from them would be establishing a headquarters.
So perfect example, right? In your DSO, which I already forgot what it stands for, Dental Support Organization.
Yeah. So a DSO
In
is
your
a
dental support
growing
organization, right now, you're using a remote CFO, you're using a remote admin, you're using remote workforce that you're able to pull in. At some point, you have enough locations that it makes sense to pull it all together into a physical location where you're managing all of these locations. That would be that headquarters opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting as I've thought about these 4 ways, it's a good exercise to go through because it really does help you ask yourself, all right, is this even possible? Is this where I want to take things? And so it's definitely, it stretches you. It stretches you to think about how can I become that primary job employer, and does that align with my growth trajectory?
On the economic development side of things,
Yes.
this is like rule number 1 of following state statute in leveraging the incentive funds that we have. We are only able to give money to businesses who are primary job employers, right? These companies who export a product or service outside of the region. Now, the definition of the region is up to the board, right? And so if, right now they look at it as outside of Midlothian. At another time, they may say, no, it needs to go, outside of the region or outside of the state or outside of the country. That power is with the board to be able to define that. And I think that you also mentioned it's important to align what you want to do with, these growths. So you're not chasing something that's out of line.
Exactly. And that's where, I think part of us doing this program together is we're going to ask each one of our listeners to go through the same exercise that I just went through with you and really see if they can target, their own project. But I do believe, you hit that exactly on the head, Kyle, like their why still has to be found within their targeted project. They can't get away from that. I think of the dentists that are not like me wanting to own multiple locations. I think of a good friend, a mutual friend of a dentist here in town that we both have. Like he is the clinical dentist. He spends his extra time going to courses to learn extra clinical procedures. Like that is what he wants to do. And so I'm not sure he would have a targeted project. Yeah, he definitely wouldn't have a DSO headquarters type project. He may have something in research and development or wholesaling that he could pursue. But I do think it's important that they stay grounded in their why and make sure that they find a project that fits within that.
You mentioned, you brought up our next challenge for all the business owners. We want you to go through this exercise, come up with an opportunity in your business, a very real opportunity of how you can be that manufacturer of a product or a service. Jordan, you provided a service software to go through. How can you be a manufacturer, that distributor, or a wholesaler, research and development, or a headquarters? So go through each of those 4, make sure and write it down in your workbooks, and we'll go through and we'll discuss it when we all meet together. Thank you for listening to this week's content. As our takeaway, we hope that you've taken time to think about and document your why. Your why can be a powerful force for motivation that will carry you through the ups and downs of your business expansion. We also hope that you have a better understanding of economic development corporations and our ability to provide incentives to companies that create primary jobs. Each of you came into this program with a desire to grow your business. Through this section, we've given you several things to think about as you embark on your business expansion journey. As we finish up, we leave you with one final challenge. Please take time and write down and articulate your business expansion plans. Your plan doesn't have to be long, but there's power in writing it down and beginning to define what you envision. As you do this, keep your why in mind. Lastly, if your expansion plan aligns with manufacturing a product or service, distribution or wholesale, research and development, or headquarter opportunities, please include those as they create opportunity for incentive participation. We look forward to seeing everyone on Thursday. At that meeting, you will be invited to share some of the comments that you've written down in your workbooks. See everyone on Thursday.